Flash Out Final, JCM Jones from Mothership and Dirty South Soccer. Joe Patrick from 90.9 The Game. Dirty South Soccer is over there. Kurt Castle on the intro of the song is Chances. Joe, we won, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Somehow that happened. That was a bit awesome, but also I don't know. I have so many conflicting feelings about the game. To be honest, I mean it was going so poorly for so long until it wasn't. So I think I remember I just felt happy for everybody that was in the stadium that night. That's the way I left that game feeling. What about
I
you?
think that's probably the right take. But we're gonna get to why I want to make this a positive podcast.
Okay.
This show, right? We're gonna get to why in just a little bit, but first, some housekeeping things. We have an Anton Walks interview up on Patreon for patrons. Anton is wonderful. We are really glad we were able to get him on and just kind of hear him talk about why he came back to Atlanta was probably one of the central themes of the interview. And it
Yeah.
seems it's because he just really loves Atlanta, which is cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I would just really recommend anybody obviously sign up for the Patreon. But it was an interest. It was an interview that is not like you would get most Anton Walks interviews. I feel like he was loose and just open. I thought the most interesting thing that he talked about was the embarrassment of having a cramp. I thought that was an interesting emotional response to that kind of injury.
And completely fair. Completely fair. We also have a couple more interviews coming up this week as well. We're going to get Felipe on to talk about, of course, the article that shook the Atlanta United
The
universe.
article.
The article. We've talked about it plenty elsewhere. We're not going to address it too much here. Plenty of stuff coming up on that throughout the year, the decade. I don't know. Right. We're also going to get Sam Stejskal on at some point to really dissect the roster salary releases that have come out, because since we are not bright enough to do so on our own, we're going to bring in an expert to help us out with that. Check that out and check this out. This is Business Time. Business Time, Joe Patrick. And I wanted to address the first piece of business, which is why I want this to be a somewhat positive podcast. We can
Please
at least
lay it
start
on
off
me.
with that. We can at least start off with that because, you know, it's just hard. We have plenty of stuff to get to. We have a ton of questions to get to as well. Y'all were eager to offer a lot of thoughts on this one, which I think is interesting because me and Joe were talking beforehand and said we didn't have really too many thoughts on this one. Besides, good win, guys. Way to survive to the last instinct there. The reason I want to make this a positive podcast, we have the old show sheet from last week up in front of me, and Joe has written out in the business time section, Atlanta United loses 1-1 on the road to Inter Miami.
That's right.
They did not lose that game. They drew that game. Even has it right there, 1-1.
But emotionally, it was a loss. That's how it felt.
That's how it felt. But maybe perhaps we're getting a little too cynical. So let's try and take some positives from a game where obviously the result came, maybe not in the way that we necessarily would have wanted. It was definitely maybe a fun way to do it. I think that's definitely the loudest crowd pop in the country in the last 14 months.
Yeah.
Right? Considering the noise and everything like that, considering that we had 40,000 people there, that's pretty cool. That's a cool thing to be a part of. And what I want to take away from it is I want to look at something else that happened at 90+4 this week. And you don't have to look too far. You just have to look across the pond to England and look at Alisson
my
Becker,
gosh,
the goalkeeper, coming up and getting a header to keep Liverpool's season alive, right? And scoring on that. That's a miracle. But why I want to bring that up.
Why does this stuff always happen to Liverpool? I feel like this stuff only and ever happens to Liverpool. Sorry, go ahead.
And this is exactly the point I want to make. So since Jurgen Klopp has come into the team, Liverpool by far have the most points from losing positions. And one of the first times, maybe the first time they got a point from a losing position was like this shitty 2-2 draw with like West Brom. And I think Divock Origi scored late, right? And after the game, and again, a garbage 2-2 draw. They really shouldn't have been celebrating. They went to the crowd, they celebrated them, they acted like it was a big moment. And people kind of continue to look back to that as a point where the team really kind of started to believe a little bit, where the fans kind of started to believe a little bit. And obviously it's gotten to the point now where you can have a goalkeeper come up and you still think you have a chance, and lo and behold, he's going to find a header for a 94th minute winner, right? So what I'm saying, I'm not saying this is that, but what I'm saying it could be is that when you get a winner like this under a new coach, and when the team takes a lap afterward to just clap and celebrate the fans and everything like the team did, you can at least instill a sense of belief. That Liverpool team that year was still pretty bad for the rest of the year,
Yeah.
right? But you do have to build that culture back. You do have to build a sense of belief back. And that is the positive I'm going to take away from this.
Well, I have the perfect segue because I was just pulling some sound. We're going to actually play some Brad Guzan talking a lot about what you just mentioned, Sam. This was after the game.
You know, we needed to stick with it, continue to push forward, and you know, believe that we're gonna put the ball in the back of the net. It's no secret that you know we want to be scoring more goals, and that hopefully will come. But sometimes, you know, games like this come, and like I said, you've got to find a way, whether it's 1-0 or 5-0. Sometimes these 1-0 games they leave a lasting impact on the group, and hopefully tonight we'll do that.
So, you know, I thought one of the biggest, you know, for 90 minutes or so, it was lots of Atlanta possession, passing, doing the whole build up thing, which we have learned from, you know, talking to Michael Parkhurst, Bobby Boswell, all these guys, Jeff Lorenowitz, that they are just drilled on that constantly, or at least they were under Tata. And we have to imagine that it's somewhat similar under Gabriel Heinze right now, where they're doing that is the majority of what they're working on in training. And that's why that part of their game looks good, but it's not quite connected to, you know, a very potent attack right now. And I thought what was, you know, if I'm being optimistic about the game, you know, I thought it was good that the team was able to change gears and was able to go a lot more direct in pushing for that goal. And the fact that they ended up getting the winner, I hope that that will serve, again, like Brad Guzan was kind of saying, that will give them some sort of belief that that kind of style and that kind of ambition can translate into goals going forward, so that, you know, at times when they are dominating possession like that, they don't have to wait till the 90th minute. They can choose their chances to break out and try to make those more direct moves downfield to try to score goals.
Yeah, let's talk about the last 10 minutes, because from about 80 minutes on, they seem to have, again, that directness, that intensity, literally everything they'd been missing for the entire game prior. It's like, I don't know what kicked in, but something kicked in that said, okay, now we need to really go. And it's like they stopped thinking so much. This team is thinking so much, it seems like, in transition moments and possession and all of those things. It seems like they are just making 30 decisions at once. It's like they all have Zeke Barco syndrome right now, right? Just attack the space, go for it, be direct, make things happen, play an early ball, make something happen. And I think a little bit has to do with the fact that Jake Mulroney came
exactly.
in.
I think a lot has to do with it. Yeah.
And came in on fresh legs and really started to stretch things a little bit and really tried to be direct. He was the best player for the 20 minutes he was in.
Yeah.
That's easy to say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Jake Mulroney is exactly the kind of player that I think can thrive in that kind of role, where he's coming on and in a situation where you need to score goals and you need somebody to be direct and try to progress the ball upfield quickly to link up with Joseph, so that Joseph isn't trying to do it all by himself. And that's what we saw from him. I thought it was not only was it a good change, but I think it could be something that a role that fits Jake Mulroney quite nicely. Because, you know, he's been hit and miss when he's starting and playing, you know, 70, 80, 90 minutes. But if you can just get those little spurts, because he is very effective when he feels that confidence to be able to go one-on-one. And I feel like when he's coming in that role for 10 or 15 minutes in a game, that alone, I think, gives him the confidence that he's going on for a reason. He's going on to do what he does best. And I think that that's the way you get the best out of a player like that. You know, I think that we saw something similar with Jurgen Damm as well. Earlier in the season when he came on, when Atlanta United was actually in a lead. I guess that was against Chicago, and he was finding space time and time again. And I think that that's something that can help these wingers. But I think that what I'm more generally worried about is what wingers are we using for the other 70, 80, 90 minutes? But no, I do think that was a real kind of confidence booster, morale booster for the team, obviously. And I think that for tactically, it also will kind of boost some of these guys to kind of understand where they feel like they can be effective on the field.
You have to hope. You have to hope. They have a week before Seattle, and I don't know if y'all seen
Yikes.
Seattle yet, but good luck. Good luck to everyone involved. The genuine hope here is that all of the confidence that perhaps came from a 1-0 win doesn't disappear immediately when Brad Smith scores like 4 times from left back. Right? Could be a rough one, but hopefully maybe they go up there and give them a fight. We'll see. We'll see. You talk about the wingers though, and Joe, are you telling me that $1.6 million winger Jurgen Damm isn't the solution right now?
Ooh, man. We're going to talk to Felipe obviously later this week, and I think it will be really interesting to add in this piece of context to the whole, a lot of this like criticism of Carlos Bocanegra and players that have been brought in and things like that. But then to have this added piece of context as to the salaries that they're being brought in at, and it gives you more it gives you more context on the way that this team was constructed, and like it gives you some insight into how the team was thinking and evaluating certain players. And yeah, that's got to be one of the more outrageous salary spends in the league. I mean, I know they got them on a free transfer, so it's not like they're paying a transfer fee on top of that salary, and players that move without a transfer fee are always going to earn more in salary typically. But wow, I mean, that one was a shocker to see when it came out.
Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen, the MLSPA released every single salary for every single player in MLS for the first time since 2019. It'd been like a year and a half, I think. So it was kind of like Christmas for some of the roster nerds in MLS world. But yeah, some interesting things there for sure. You have Dom on 1.6 million. You have Brad Gazan, who, as you know, our feelings on and the analytics feelings on him is maybe not worth $800,000 to play keeper at a average or below average level, things like that. There's a lot to kind of unpack here.
Yeah. And again, I got to caveat this every time we talk about contracts, but not against the players. I want every player to make as much money as they can possibly earn. It's not their fault that it's this situation that the league is structured in a way where you have to try to figure out a way to maximize the amount of production you get back for the amount of spend that you put in. But that's just the way it is. And, I do wonder, I think that there's even more of a spotlight on this sometimes with the way that the salaries are dumped out, where it's all at once. So then it becomes a big story around the league. And maybe it means that it burns hotter for a short amount of time and then everybody kind of forgets about it. Maybe, I don't know. I never forget. No, but I think that, like in other sports, like when an NFL team signs somebody, it's like, okay, they signed them for 3 years for $20 million. And so you just know that straight up off the bat. And that kind of, goes into your brain as a piece of the puzzle as to how the team is being built, as opposed to in MLS, you don't know that. And I get it. I get the reason why, for competitive reasons. It makes sense. But regardless, you're getting all this information dumped on you at one time. And I love it. I think it's very interesting to kind of go through and digest. And again, it gives you context on how the teams, not just Atlanta United, but other teams are built. And yeah, I mean, we'll have plenty to say on this in the coming weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It does come all at once. This huge wave of information, especially when we don't know for like a year and a half what that looks like.
There was not one salary guide last year. Usually there's 2 per year.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, it confirmed a lot of fears that we might have had, I think, about how this team is constructed. And of course, coming on the heels of Felipe Cardenas' article in The Athletic, which if you're listening to this show and you haven't read that or heard about it at this point, I'm genuinely shocked. Please go find that. I don't think we need to explain too much about it. But coming on the heels of that and considering what the general timbre is of the feelings towards the front office right now, coming off the heels of that, it was maybe not the 1-2 punch they were hoping to hear about this week. For sure. It kind of piles on just a little bit. We're going to unpack all that a lot more, though. Again, that's on the Patreon. We're going to interview Sam Stagecall, who of Allocation Disorder and The Athletic. Him and Paul Tenorio go super, super in depth with this stuff. They're going to have a better understanding of exactly what it means that Brad Gazan is on $800,000, but no transfer fee and things like that. We'll get into it more. We're also going to go ahead and get into your questions because y'all had a lot after this quick break. Wow, what a break. An amazing break. The best break ever. Literally no break ever like it. Never before. As long as it wasn't that one where the sirens go in the background. I guess it was a pretty incredible break, to be totally honest. Y'all had a bunch of questions. We're going to try to get to every single one of them as best we can. Like I said, though, there are a lot. We tried to organize these as best we can. There were like three kind of themes that kept popping up, and y'all wanted to, one, know about certain players, especially on the wing. Y'all wanted to know about the tactics of Gabriel Heinze and whether or not they're actually working. And y'all wanted to know about future acquisitions for Atlanta United, considering that everyone seemed to be complaining about the players on the wings, which we have to, right? So we'll start with that first one. We'll kind of go with this first one from Jonathan, who asked, minus a stoppage time game winner, how close are you to feeling like this has been very FTB-like to start? I wanted to start with this question just to, again, reiterate that this is not felt FTB-ish. Not to me, not personally. I have way more confidence right now. I don't know about you.
I understand why people say that because, you know, when you look at the possession numbers, the lack of goals, you can easily kind of draw that line. But, you know, to me, it is much different for a couple of reasons. One is just my general sense of the style. When you look at it on the field, the passing is more intricate. There's more definitive trained movements going on, as to where under the FDB, early in the FDB regime, it was a lot of players not really moving around a ton, just like a lot of kind of standing still. And that was worrisome. But this feels different, you know, just because of the player movements and the way that it looks. I would also say that one of the things I remember from early in the FDB tenure was players looking very frustrated on the field, like Joseph Martinez getting really mad at the team getting too stretched, and like he would press and then other players aren't pressing, and then you have big gaps and players really getting visibly frustrated on the field. And I don't see that from this team. Like I see a team that is generally compact and feels like they are working together. It's just a matter of being able to kind of break out of that middle third of the field and being able to find success in the final third.
I think you bring up a good point, and that the frustration with FTB wasn't just tactically, it was culturally as well. And you could kind of see that in the body language. Like, you really could. And of course, everything that's come out now, we understand that cultural shift was extremely jarring. This doesn't feel like that for a couple of reasons. One, I honestly just think Heinze is a better man manager. You know, I won't elaborate too much more on that, but you get the gist. And secondly, this is just a young team. This is not the team that has had to be torn down brick by brick, right? This is the team that had basically the foundation and nothing else, right? And it's a bunch of kids for the most part. It's weird to think about how young a lot of these guys are.
I know.
Still a lot of 19 and 22-year-olds out there for Atlanta United, but it's easier to kind of imprint yourself on that. There are still pieces that needed to be added, but you know, the foundation is there, and they at least aren't hating every second and, you know, I don't know, walking off the field during practices or anything like that. Seems to be better, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I would just reiterate, yeah, the age of the players is quite striking. I'm just looking up something right now. Yeah, so like Machop Chol, he's 22. I think that Santiago Sosa is also 22. You know, Franco Ibarra is the age that you would expect like an academy player. So and granted, those players have a lot more just experience at a higher level in their careers at this point, but still, they're young and they're still learning their own craft and learning the game. So definitely something worth keeping in mind with this team.
Absolutely. Someone's going to add us about like Zeke now, but like also Zeke has been playing in this team for 3 years, and we kind of know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So Allison asked, just to kind of continue with this thing a little bit, are there any positives besides the result to take from this game, right? And I think taking out the stuff we kind of talked in the first part of the positive podcast, maybe not. It was pretty awful, to be totally honest, for a large section of that. Lots of me and Joe like looking at each other and just laughing as like, I don't know, someone plays a pass that wasn't even within 15 yards of where it should be.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I don't think I sent a single tweet out during the game because I just didn't feel like there was anything worth commenting on. Honestly, it was just pretty much. But after the game, I gave Miles Robinson a shout out. I thought he was kind of sneaky good, especially on the ball. I felt like Atlanta's best attacks. First of all, the best attacks came when they quickly countered after winning the ball back. Sometimes they did not do that as well as they could have. Like they just turn around and passed it backwards instead of trying to go for goal, which is a whole nother thing. But the times where they did create some opportunities out of their own buildup, I thought the best chances came when Miles Robinson was finding either Joseph Martinez or one of the wingers with a direct pass on the ground centrally that was just bypassing the midfield. And I feel like that's generally, I think, what this buildup, what this possession needs to turn into for Atlanta United. I don't think you really want like Emerson, the ball always moving through Emerson Hyndman or through, another central midfielder there. I think that oftentimes when you can deliver the ball straight to Joseph Martinez and then he can play it back to one of those central midfielders and make a run, it just creates a lot more dynamism and what you can do in the attack when you make that outlet. So I thought that Miles Robinson was pretty good.
One of the things we talked a lot about when Gabriel Lanza was first hired, was that this team was going to try and play a lot of line breaking passes, especially from spots like center back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Velez teams were very successful at that. You can kind of see that in the highlights of their best goals. But the thing that is positive about line breaking passes that it unsettles the rest of the lines, right? Like at that point, when you get through a line of defense, you have another one having to react to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it only works if when you do it, you actually try and make something happen afterward, right? So even if Miles is finding those passes, what's frustrating is seeing folks sit on those passes, right? And not do anything with it, not turn, not to attack space, not play balls over the top or anything like that or through, they went over the top a lot against Montreal. It didn't quite work out, but playing those balls and doing those things that make the defense really have to react and be scrambled a little bit once those line breaking passes happen. That's kind of the next step, I think, right? If they can figure out how to get those passes, got to make something happen afterward, right? Which should theoretically be somewhat easy. You just got to do it.
Yeah, I think Joseph Martinez is athletically looking better and better every single game. And I think that as that comes back, I think a lot of like the movements that he wants to make and the way that he can help instruct his teammates on those moves will really kind of help the attack get going. So hopefully that does kind of come to fruition here in the next month or so.
We'll see. You guys had a lot of questions about just general personnel. And we'll start with this one from C Black, who asked, what do you make of ASA's goals added rankings of Atlanta players? Lyndon Moreno are our most goal dangerous players, but curiously, Hyndman is our least goal dangerous player. Is that a function of the role he's been asked to play or something else? I'm not sure how curious that necessarily is. Let's talk about Emerson though. I mean, it's maybe not curious that he isn't super goal dangerous, and goals added does kind of shy away from folks in the midfield who maybe aren't extremely progressive sometimes. Like it'll just go after folks like even Lucas Elorion, who loses possession a lot, or it'll go after
Darlington Nagbe,
who doesn't, progress the ball a lot. So maybe that's a reason for it. Also keep in mind, it's a small sample size. I can hear Teal Football screaming at us in his car as he sits in the Cookout parking lot right now. But we're doing our best to explain this. And I'm glad y'all are looking at things like that to maybe understand who's being effective or not. But it does bring up a question that I think everyone is asking and wondering in their mind right now. Is Marcelino Moreno good?
Yeah, I don't know.
He is second in goals added on this team right now. Again, Brooks is first. Miles is right behind him. That's usually a decent way to kind of assess value for a team. Go to AmericanSoccerAnalysis.com to check all that out and get a further understanding of how that all works, because I can't explain it off the top of my head in a concise way. But I don't know, man. He gets the goal. So he got a goal. He scored.
Yeah, he did. I did not have him rated highly though until that goal came in. I think somebody asked this on Twitter. Somebody said what did your ratings look like before the result came in? And honestly, I publish it so quickly after the game. I try to get it in as soon as I can. I didn't make many changes, but I did tick Bello up one for his play, and then I ticked up Moreno 2 for that goal, just because it was so big. But I just generally thought he was pretty poor on the night. But he gets hacked down a lot, as similar to Barco. It's like the same kind of thing where it's frustrating because it seems like the ball stops a lot when it gets to Moreno, even though he's trying to take players on. It will be either be like a foul or a giveaway or something, So I don't know. Like, I feel like I've continually ranked him or rated him pretty low, like on the lower side. I feel like many of his performances have been below average so far this season. But then, yeah, you go and look at the goal plus, and he's honestly rated some of the highest on the team. And I don't know if that's due to the amount of times he's taking players on or what it is. I'd be interested if Toyota Football could please tweet something this afternoon to explain maybe why these ratings are coming in the way they are. That would be helpful, because I don't quite fully understand it either. I've always taken the mindset that whether it's goals plus or XG or whatever kind of advanced analytic we're talking about, I still feel like if you watched a full game with your two eyes and you weren't completely blacked out, then you have a general sense of who was good and who was not. Like, I feel like you have a better overall take on the game because you're taking in everything. You're taking in the tactics, you're taking in the other team, you're taking in everything all at once, as opposed to, breaking things down on a granular level and then trying to compute out a score. I think that these metrics are very, very helpful for more longer term, larger sample size observations, when you can't theoretically take all the information that you watch from one game and use, take 10, 15, 20 games and put all that information together and spit out something that's accurate. So I think that that's where those come in. So, who knows why they rank those players the way they do, the gold plus.
As always, qualitative data is still data.
Yeah.
You kind of have to use them in concert, right? And I know exactly what TO Football is going to say about Moreno's G plus being so high. His fouling statistic, I don't know how tier is very high for some reason, and really that doesn't mean a whole lot. That may have something to do with the penalty he won against New England. I don't really know. I don't really know. TF, get at us. We had more qualitative questions about players. And again, it was a lot about the wingers, a lot about Jake Mulroney and his appearance. Jake asked, how do you see Dom's role evolving? Also, Mulroney is thriving in the system, right? Tony asked, should we sleep on Mulroney or could he be a dude? And Chris asked, assuming everyone is healthy, who do you want starting at right wing? Dom for speed, Mulroney for the ability to actually play soccer, or Lennon for both of those, but then not having a good right back. All fair questions. We'll start with Jake's, and I just kind of want to address this first, right? How do we see Jurgen Dom's role evolving? Man, we got a lot of data points on Jurgen Dom at this point. I think his role is just what it is, right? Like, he is the fast guy.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the way he's been for years and years now. Like, I don't think anything else is gonna change about how he's used or how teams try to use him, or if he's gonna even change how he himself tries to play. That's just kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah, and again, it's like, okay, obviously Gabriel Heinze is not going to be picking players based off of their wages, right? But if you pay someone $1.6 million for a year, like you need, if you want the team to be good and to score lots of goals, like you need production from that money. And so when I compare him to somebody like Jake Mulroney is the perfect kind of depth piece that good MLS teams need. I don't think that Jake Mulroney is like a starting winger for a team that has MLS Cup aspirations. He can be an MLS. He could absolutely be a key player, a key role player for an MLS Cup team. But there's a big difference in between those two, and so that's kind of how I see it. And when it comes to Jurgen Damm, I mean, I hope that he can be as effective as he can with his speed, but I just feel like he's a one trick, it's a one trick thing. And once maybe it catches some teams out early in the season here, obviously Chicago struggled to deal with it. And I do think that if Atlanta has a lead and other teams are chasing goals, he can be very effective. But again, that's more like he can be most effective in situations where the team is already in an advantageous position, which is, not great. I don't know. It's kind of demoralizing, honestly, when I think about the situation more and more. How are you feeling about it?
Nah, you took the words right out of my mouth. He's a depth guy. He's a guy that would be great to have as a backup, right?
Yeah.
As a guy coming in, he's solid there. He's just good. He's just kind of there, but he's not what you would want for a team like Atlanta United, who has what, the third highest wage bill in MLS.
And
It's
and
either
for
third or fourth. I can't
and,
remember.
and for Mulroney's price, I think he's making like 300,000 or something
Which
like
is
that.
perfect.
Exactly.
Nailed it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
that is perfectly solid. That is exactly what you want. That is good, efficiency in terms of the money that you're spending for what you're getting back. But it
Did you
plays into
see?
the context of the rest of the team in this case.
I think John Gallagher is making less.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put that out. Anyway.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Well, Zach brings up a question about the same kind of scenario, and he asked, "Do they really miss Dom and Barco this much? Dom's final ball is all over the place, but he's very aggressive. And Moreno takes too long to make decisions to play in the center, and Ibarra isn't a creator, trying to decide how much criticism Heinze is due." I want to talk about Ibarra first because hell no, he ain't a creator. Who's got time for that? Who's got time for that? When you have one goal in life, which is to ruin the dude in front of you, right? None of this artsy shit. Get the hell out of here. Ain't a creator. No, Ibarra plays murder ball, and I love him. I just love him. I don't know. That's all I got. He's young and he wants blood. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh no, totally agree. I mean, I love Ibarra's his versatility is really, really handy. The fact that he can play in midfield, he can play right back, he can play, well, maybe left back. We'll see. He's been put there before and he didn't have such a great stretch. But again, young player you can mold into, and he's kind of like the perfect kind of moldable player where he has these kinds of abilities that are, he's got the kind of tenacity and the technical ability at the core that you want to see, and then you can kind of mold him into whatever kind of player you want him to become. And I think that he has the perfect opportunity to do that under Heinze.
Yeah, we don't know too much about him yet. We're going to continue learning more about him and how he kind of fits into this system. But do want to get back to Zach's first thing. Do they really miss Dom and Barco this much? And I'm glad he phrased it like this, because I said after the game, like, oh man, someone's going to add us and say that like if Zeke is there, then this team is going to be so much better and everything. Which, I mean, technically they're improved, right? If Zeke is in the lineup, they're improved. Can you rely on that at all at this point? No, you can't.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't.
It's exactly. I mean, you said it in the press box to me, because I was saying, I was like, you got to take into account that they're missing Barco, but yeah, it's like he's missed what, like half his Atlanta United's games,
Half. I think
over
it's
half, yeah, something like that.
He started like 43 out of like 97 now, I think is
Yeah,
what it is.
which is a shame. I mean, and I wish we had more detail as to like what his injuries specifically have been. I know he had a knee at one point in 2018. But if he keeps, and I would say also the same for Dam as well. Like he's already had 2 muscle strains, I think, since joining last year. He had one not long after joining the team in 2020, and then already one this year. And as a sprinter, that's worrisome for me, because I think he's just going to be prone to that kind of stuff. So do they miss them? Will they be a better team with those 2 players? Yes, of course. But yeah, I totally agree with what you said.
There you go. There you go. Jake kind of hits at the heart of the matter and asks, do you see improvement from game 1 at Wednesday? MLS is weird. I get that. We don't really need all W's out of the gate, but feels like we had a huge step forward in that first half versus Philly and haven't been able to replicate it since. And that's something I've been thinking about. Like, obviously Zeke and Jurgen were in for that, right? And that still is the best half they've played under Heinze so far, which I think gets back to our point that, like, yes, they are better with Barco and Dam. I don't disagree with that. It's just that you can't really rely on it at this point. I don't quite know how they get back to replicating that first half against Philly, though. It seems like almost a flash in the pan at this point. Hopefully it comes back, but it's going to take a second to get back to that consistently.
Yeah.
Maybe they do it against Sounders. Maybe they bring the intensity in a game they know is big.
Yeah,
that's just it.
The thing that always comes to mind when I think about that 50 minutes against the Philadelphia Union is the way that the team pressed in that period and the way they just kept on winning the ball back. And I do think that that's where Barco would make a big difference, because this year, I really do feel like his strongest, his best ability that he's shown is his pressing and winning the ball and being really sharp in those instances. I think he came into the season as fit as he's been since I've seen him at Atlanta United, which is a good sign. I think that that's one of the things that helps him want to be eager to do those pressing movements. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's the next step. We didn't really see it. I thought we would see a more intense pressing and counter pressing against Montreal. They ended up having so much possession that it wasn't really like I don't know if needed is the right word, but anyway, we didn't really see it as much as I thought we would. And I think that that's really what honestly will provide a lot of the offense for this team as well. It's like when you're winning the ball high up the field, you're going to create really good opportunities for yourself that you don't have to create through a lot of intricate build up. And that's especially, I think, in MLS with just the general talent, the quality of talent with the players. I think that that is, a huge aspect of the game. And I think that that will be the next step for this team.
That'll help. It'll also help if when they get any transition moment to actually get some speed behind it, which brings us to our questions from Tata Ibarco's Taco Barco and Christian, who both basically asked, why are things so slow? Why is this like this? How far away are we from seeing this team executing the way the system is intended to be executed? And I don't know necessarily the answer to that. We've talked a bit before about how now that we're on a normal schedule with a little bit of rest, with a little bit more time to get into training, things should theoretically continue to improve, right? That they better, I guess. But I don't know. I think the reason it's slow is because, again, they just aren't making decisions quickly enough, or maybe are making decisions in general. They need to just kind of act and not worry about choosing the right thing, and I think that comes with time. It should, right?
Yeah, it was interesting in this particular game to watch Brooks Lennon, who seemed like the only one who was like really adamant about making those runs. He was like pointing into space and he was making the runs quite often, and the space was there. They weren't always able to pick out the timing and get that right, but I do think that the space was there. And I think that part of it comes down to just players having the confidence to maybe feel like they're defying what the manager, like what they've been drilled on so hard during the week and just try to like go rogue and, make something happen. But I think that honestly, they could use that. I mean, I think that that's the right kind of mentality to have, especially in a game situation where it's like, you gotta, you're not getting graded on on a training score. It's like, you gotta, score goals. And so hopefully we start to see more of that. And again, going back to what we were talking about early in the show with the team, just generally kind of switching and going more direct in those last 10 minutes, hopefully that, I would hope that that gives the team some sort of idea as to like, okay, if we can play like this, it can give us the rewards that we're looking for. So maybe it's worth doing that more often.
And again, we saw it in the last 10, 15 minutes of this one, right? Like,
yeah,
and it worked. Hopefully that's the confidence boost they need to at least attempt it. Right. Again, I'm still not sure the personnel is there to make things happen when they do start to effectively execute, but more things will happen, right? Maybe not all the things, but more things. It'll get better. It'll get better. You have to hope. Anyway, it doesn't help though when the other team is putting together a tactical masterclass. Joe Patrick, Gabby Heinze, and C Black asked about this, but Gabby Heinze was highly lots of praise for Wilfred Nancy's tactical setup in this one. Said that he hoped everyone recognized how beautiful it was and everything like that. What a great tactical battle it is. Things such as that. We all kind of looked at each other and went, really? And again, Gabby Heinze going to have a way better eye for this kind of thing than anyone sitting in a press box, right? You have to imagine. But I don't know, man. I didn't pick up on it.
Well, I mean, you were telling us like before coming into the game, that Montreal is not a team to sleep on anymore. I mean, maybe they have been in the past, but yeah, you were. But I mean, it was impressive. Impressive win, 2-0 win on the road against Miami. Like the results haven't been bad. I think that Montreal is actually a pretty good team. I don't know where they're going to fall, but in the 2 to 25 range of the MLS power rankings, but.
Roll some dice and you'll be as close as like anything else at this point. We have no idea what we're doing.
Good to know. But yeah, I mean, I hope they're good. I hope they're very good, and that Atlanta United just got a result against a very good team. But no, I don't know. I couldn't tell you enough. I wasn't really like watching them with the kind of critical eye to tell you how good they are exactly. It seemed like they had like a shell, essentially. It was like a shell, and they were just like protecting that central part area of the pitch. And they were just forcing Atlanta wide in all instances.
Yeah, forcing a lot of wide, long balls over the top. And again, sometimes they just didn't find the mark. Sometimes they just flat out ignored Brooks Lennon, who would have had a ton of space if they had picked him out. And again, the furious pointing from Brooks Lennon was legitimate. We weren't kidding about that. That's not a bit. He was like literally pointing at the space, begging for the ball at certain points. But I think the most concerning thing about the tactical setup for me for Montreal was how high they felt comfortable going up the pitch. Can you imagine in like 2018 or even 2017, a team pressing that high up the field
Yeah,
against Atlanta United that isn't Red Bulls? They were in a mid block
they were in
inside
the
that
mid
mid
block.
block,
Yeah,
like high up the field because there's no threat at all for Atlanta to get it behind at
yep.
this point. They would have gotten thrashed in
Yeah, they would have.
2017, 2018, right?
That's where Tito and Gressel would just feast on in those kinds of games.
Mm-hmm.
Playing the ball wide in those channels where there's the space in behind, and then finding cutbacks from to Joseph or Almiron or whoever. Yeah, that would have been dangerous. And that again, that's like it feels like that's what this team is missing is that pressure on those half spaces and those channels in the wide areas. They're just not quite able to get the ball into those positions as often as maybe they were previously.
Yeah. I will say I think that Gabby Hines' comments were genuine. I don't think like he's blowing smoke up anybody's rear or anything like that. He seemed really, really impressed. And fair play to Wilfred Nancy, who's done a very good job taking over for Thierry Henry in Montreal. We had a few more questions and kind of just back into the personnel territory. And we'll start this one from Parker, who says, any chance Joseph scores in Seattle and screams at Darren and Bocanegra? And he ends up running the team again.
This is
Parker's
obviously in
referring to,
reference to in
yes.
2019 when he scored, and Felipe had an article about how he was yelling at the team to whatever.
Yelled
I
at,
forget
yelled
the
at
details.
Frank specifically, I
Yeah,
think, for
yeah.
celebrating
Oh,
these
that's
goals
right,
that
for
they had scored.
celebrating the tying goal. Yeah,
And then the team shifted to the formation they had ran last year and started playing a little more open, and they nearly made it to MLS Cup if it weren't for Nick DeLeon. So, obviously, a lot coming out the last week about personnel decisions, about roster decisions. Much of it focused on Carlos's decisions as well, right? So I get where Parker's coming from. Parker is obviously being Parker there, but yeah, that's the big question right now, which leads us to a couple of things from Logan and Will, who are basically asking in different ways, what type of player are we looking for? Which I feel like is something that we kind of continually get asked. But what is the mold of player, whether that be domestic or abroad, that Atlanta is looking for? Is it tactics based? Is it market based? Is it age based? What exactly is the profile here?
I mean, I think you need somebody that's going to help you score goals, first of all. So, like, you have to identify
Right.
what you're trying to solve. And so that's what you need. So, you already have a striker who helps you do that in Joseph Martinez. So, check that box. And I think the next one down is an attacking dynamic winger that can play. That one can play also, could play at striker if you need, whether it's with Joseph late in a game to chase a goal or in place of Joseph to give him a break. But I also just think like you need that dynamism. It's exactly what we've been talking about through most of the show with what kind of Jurgen Damm and Jake Mulroney maybe lack is just like that technical ability to take a fullback on one-on-one and just create something, create some havoc, create some danger. And I think that's what they need. Obviously, there's a lot of alluding to Tito Villalba. I would say that is kind of like the profile player that they need. I wouldn't say Tito specifically, but yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
I think what I want to add to this and to really talk about the profile of it is that for this one, I don't think there necessarily needs to be a profile. You have a team full of young guys that are ready to be sold and everything like that, right? At this point, get someone in that's going to get the job done, whether that's someone who's older, someone who doesn't fit the profile
Yeah.
that we've kind of seen from this team, right? Like you have enough of that basic profile, right? If that has to be someone who's 28, 29, but still has the legs and still has the ability to make something happen, I think you go ahead and do that in a year where you really desperately need that, and you desperately, maybe not desperately, but you want to have that as fans return to stadium, to have a team that's going to draw folks in still and still provide the entertainment value that you want from an Atlanta United team. I think you take that risk in a way that we haven't seen this Atlanta team do before.
Yeah, I never really obsess over like what age of player they need to get, because that I feel like that's always going to be something that the front office is more preoccupied with in terms of maybe an age that lets them, slide a DP in at a better price on the salary budget or whatever, sell on reasons. I always just want the best player, like whoever's going to provide the most. So I'm totally with you that if it's an older player, then go after that player. In my opinion, like it's not my money, so I just want to see
Right.
the best team on the field as possible.
Exactly. And theoretically, I've said that a bunch. I've said theoretically a bunch today, and I apologize for that. But we are doing a lot of um, hypothesizing here. But you could we could see this team make some really really big moves in the summer,
It
right?
could, yeah.
And you're going to have a lot of money to play with at that point, hopefully. And you can take those, maybe a little more risk, I guess, with that, with going for a player that you're not going to be able to sell on and recoup some cost. I would think.
If they do clear a DP spot, that decision, or that whoever they sign to fill that DP role, will probably be the most important decision this team has made in the last like year at least, and will definitely like kind of set the course for what this team can do, while during Gabriel Heinze's tenure, I think.
And all considered, it'd be interesting to know, and we may never know, or we may know 3 years from now, exactly how much input Gabby's going to have into that, because obviously Frank really didn't have any input. Tata had some input, which led to some issues in the front office. It'll be interesting to know what they've kind of learned from those two coaches and having those two people in the front office, and how they conduct these next few searches, especially again with Paul McDonough back as well too. So there are a whole lot of variables there that are going to make this a massive choice for the front office right now. It's going to be interesting to see how much pressure is even applied on them to do such a thing now that this stuff has come out. Kind of a lot to get there. We'll see. We'll see. I want to get to this last one because I think it's really fun. We'll do it quickly though, and we'll kind of alter it. Ryan McManus asked, rank the following Lady United players in terms of how effective a full team of their clones would be, a la an all Lorenowitz 11. I think I did a piece on that forever ago and ran it through FIFA a few times, and it was a disaster. Don't do an all Lorenowitz 11. I think I got fired in October. That's what happened. So players, we'll pick the team we think would be the best here, because I just want to know. Jurgen Damm, Ezekiel Barco, Jake Moraney, Emerson Heineman, Marcelino Moreno, Brooks Lennon, and Cubo Torres. Of all those guys,
I had the same exact reaction to that.
who would be the best team of themselves? And I think like you kind of have to look at who's going to have the most all-around attributes. And
yeah, this is basically a question of like,
right?
who's the most versatile player of these. Yeah, and that's what I would say. I would say Brooks Lennon.
It's Brooks, right? Brooks is also going to give you like a high effort. Holy shit, it's Red Bulls. If you put Brooks Lennon in all 11 Brooks Lennon team, it is the Red Bulls. Holy crap!
Alex Mule is Brooks Lennon.
Danny Royer.
Danny Royer. Yep, exactly. He is.
Brian White is Brooks. Like all of it, they're all Brooks Lennon. Every single one of them.
That's totally true.
Drew Yearwood is Brooks Lennon.
Do you have any hot takes on who maybe one other player you would say like the next best? I would probably still say Barco, just because of the technical ability. I mean, defensively it would be a mess. You'd have to get the same kind of pressure you're getting from him early this season. But
my absolutely broken brain would love to see the Jurgen Damm one though, just because of all the speed all over the place. It's
tons
like
of
such an
recovery
extreme
speed at center back.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be the worst position team. It might just end up being total football accidentally, because no one like knows where to be, right? So they're just running full speed, and at that point you're covering a lot of ground. It may redefine the sport as we know it. What may redefine Five Stripe Final and me and Joe's relationship as we know it is this segment of Rapid Fire. Nick asked, did Joe enjoy his birthday? Did Sam get Joe an acceptable present? Joe, I got you Rapid Fire.
Oh, thank you. I did enjoy my birthday. It was nice just being totally offline.
Rapid
I was
fire.
like not on my phone,
Rapid
and
fire.
So yeah. But I generally don't like birthdays. Arbitrary
fire.
Arbitrary time takes for the Earth to go around the sun.
Hell. Are you done?
I'm done.
Happy birthday. I love you.
Thank you. Love you.
Taco Barco says that now that we are full capacity with no mask for the common folk, how far out are the press from returning to practice? Joe Patrick, I saw Julia Poe tweet that she was at Orlando doing in-person interviews very, very recently. So that's exciting. I will say that teams media are allowed to get B-roll now. So that's a
Mhm.
step forward. We're moving
Yeah.
in the right direction. We're getting there soon. Um, John asks, luckier five stripes or Scousers? Joe, you want to take a swig at this?
Liverpool is the luckiest team I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Alexandria asked, why are the players unwilling to take folks on? It's a very good question. I kind of wish we had a little more time to address it, but it kind of goes back to, again, they just don't have they're again making too many decisions at once. It seems like everyone is at this point. Just go for it. Be a little brave. Be a
Yeah.
little brave.
I would say
But
they're
there's some,
second guessing themselves. That would be like my
yeah,
thing.
exactly. But hopefully that confidence thing again, confidence, guys.
Mhm.
Stamper asked, what's more likely? We somehow come away with a point against Seattle, or we score 4 goals against literally anyone sometime this season. And my answer to that is that Chicago and Cincinnati both exist and are both
Yeah.
in the Eastern
I was gonna
Conference.
say definitely the latter. I think Atlanta will definitely score 4 goals against an opponent,
They
multiple
did.
opponents
Didn't
probably.
they do it last year against like DC out of nowhere? Right? Was it 4 or
Yeah,
did they score?
maybe.
Maybe it was 4. I don't know. I blocked that year out. John asked, we are more than halfway through May and no third kit news. Where are they? Darren said those would come in the summer. I took that to mean like June. I think June. Actually, maybe Pablo Maurer reported that it was June. I can't remember. It's coming in soon, though. Keep
Sure.
an eye out. Keep an eye out. I'm interested. I'm interested to see what those look like. Niall asked, does Atlanta United need to sign a player capable of scoring double-digit goals because we can't afford to rely on Joseph when he's trying to recover from his injury? Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yep.
exactly what we talked about with the DPs. Yep.
Bob asked, will Paul Rudd ever drive on the spike as Celery Man? I think that's a Tim and Eric bit. I'm not entirely sure. I'm hopeful for one that Paul Rudd drives on the spike as Andy Fleckner from Wet Hot American Summer. That'd be my choice. Gersessa asked, I didn't see Fred's Meat and Bread at MBS last night. Where should I eat instead if I'm not in the mood for barbecue? I think you just come up to the press box, right? Get one of our box things.
Yeah, you
Our
get
box
at least get an
exactly.
ice cream.
Get an ice cream. Yeah, exactly.
By the way,
Exactly.
shout out to the attendant working the ice cream machine last time, really filling up the cups like as full as possible.
They don't mess around. They don't mess around at all. It's beautiful. Kevin asked, what do we need to get this offense going?
A little bit of love.
A little bit of love, a little bit of TLC, I think. I think if you just like garden it, give it a little bit of water, some sunlight, I think you might feel better about it. I think you might feel better about where it's going. Teodal Football asks, what the hell did I eat? Teodal, you have to stop eating the little packets that come in, like the silica gel packets that come in boxes and stuff, man. That's not food. That's not food. Gosh. Tommy asked, does Heinze know he can use more than 1 or 2 subs per game?
I think he does. I just think
I
he
sure
doesn't
think
want
he
to.
does. Yep. I think you're exactly right. Chris Hask, have NFTs already jumped the shark? And no, because I just got this really sick NFT of a guy actually jumping a shark, and it's the best one. In your face, Chris. Will ask, summer beer of choice. I like Tritonia. I'm a big Tritonia person when it gets warm.
Ooh, when in the heat, I always just love anything that's like ice cold with a lime in it. I know that's very basic, but yeah. And I also just got this tackle box, the Sweetwater tackle box that has an hazy IPA in it. That's really good. I like it.
That is solid. That is solid. And that was rapid fire, a solid rapid fire segment, if you will. And that will pretty much wrap up the show. Joe, anything else the folks need to know about? Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope, nothing really from me. A lot more coming later this week, so should have some really good episodes. And everybody, feel free to sign up at patreon.com/5stripe final.
Beautiful. You can find us on Twitter at J_Sam Jones, at JPatrick200, and at 5stripe final. Of course, check out Dirty South Soccer. Any chance you get, check out 90.9 The Game for Joe coming on the radio and talking about Braves, talking about Atlanta United and everything like that. And of course, check out the Mothership. You can check out my newsletter that I have for them every day, every single day until I die. Sign up for that. It's great. I love it. It is fun. And we have a good time. Lots of other stuff going up on the Mothership as well. Have a couple features and a couple pieces about Atlanta United on there right now. In fact,
yeah, it's really good stuff.
Bless you. Thank you. That'll do it for 5 Stripe Final. We love you. We miss you. We'll see you soon. Bye, all.